scans can take a while, then I'll start the video back again and we'll pick up from there, okay? Okay, so as you can currently tell, our scan is currently done. And if we expand all these items here, then we'll be able to tell a little bit more about them. A majority of these are going to be tracking cookies, as is signified by the little fortune cookie icon over here on the right. But we do have one item which is the threat that we were talking about, and that is our lsas.exe. And as we see here again, this is the file we were talking about. It's located under Documents and Settings, under User, under Application Data, and LSAS, where it was hiding out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell it to fix the selected problems. In this case, of course, fix is going to be to delete the problems. Now, also remember, you're always 90% of the time going to have tracking cookies unless you tell Internet Explorer to disable all cookies on every website, and certain websites won't act correctly unless you have cookies enabled. So gonna go ahead and fix the selected problem and gonna tell it to remove the entries I selected, and there we go. It finished really quickly. 10 problems were fixed, so all of these items together were fixed. And if we look here, the executable was also deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Spybot Search and Destroy. And if we pull our task manager back up, we'll notice that now we do have the LSAS service here, but this one is the legitimate Windows LSAS service, so we don't have a second one anymore. So we're good to go in that regard. Let's check out one more thing though. If we go to start and run an msconfig and check out our startup, we'll still see that, yeah, those two items are still there. So how do we get rid of those, right? Well, that's where our other tool, hijack this, comes in. We're going to double click on hijack this, go to run, and we have to accept the end user license agreement. And it says do not show this window when you start. I don't mind it showing this window, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that item at the bottom. Now you can see here we have several options. We have an option to do a scan and save a log file. We have an option to do a scan only. We can view a list of backups. We can open the miscellaneous tools section, or we can open the online hijack this quick start, which is just going to tell us a little bit more about it online. For our purposes, we're just going to do a scan, but I don't want to save a log file because I'm not going to be sending it to anyone else. If you have any trouble using hijack this, you can always save the log file, and there are plenty of forums out on the internet where you can submit log files, and people will definitely help you figure out what processes are good and which ones are bad. So we're going to go ahead and do a system scan only, and here we are. We have a few items, and this may not make a lot of sense to you at first, but let's break down and let's look at what we're actually viewing here. So we have our main default website, which is go.microsoft.com. We have our search, our default search, which is microsoft.com. We have our main search, which is microsoft.com. We also have our start page, which is microsoft.com. So this is really dumping out a lot of information from Internet Explorer. And down below that, now we have the items that are set to run. So if we look here, we can see that msconfig put itself in the startup, and that's because we ran it once. So remember, whenever you run msconfig, it's going to prompt you when you reboot the machine, and it's going to tell you that it has been ran, and it's going to ask you, do you want to keep running it? I'll show you right after this. But here we have our other two items, which are that one that was there under msconfig didn't really make any sense. I'm going to go ahead and check that. And we also have our lsas.exe that's still set to execute when the computer starts up. So I'm going to check that as well. And you can look around in here. We have our Google Update Service. We have our Microsoft Office items, which are set to start up. And if you had any redirecting proxies or anything in here, your list may vary in size. There could be a few items in here, and this list is really going to vary depending upon how your computer is set up. And you also want to be sure about whatever you touch in here, because you can mess up a few things and your browser may not work correctly, or you don't want to eliminate certain startup items too. In this case, we know specifically what we're looking for, which are this item here that just says 1, and then we have the other item, which is going to be our fake lsas.exe, which is housed under the application data. And I'm going to go ahead and click on fix checked, and it's going to ask me, am I sure I want to permanently delete these? And I'm going to go ahead and click on yes, and we're done. If we do another scan, then it'll pop up minus those 2 items that we just deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of hijack this. I'm going to exit out of my tools directory, and if we do one last check of msconfig, then you'll notice that the items are gone from our startup. So hijack this has done its job, and now we have that Trojan completely removed from this computer. So if I go ahead and do OK, you're going to notice that it's going to prompt me to restart the machine, and I'll skip through the restart, but I'll show you the window that it'll normally pop up with if you've been to msconfig and made a change, or just been in there and clicked OK. Sometimes it'll still prompt you to restart, and then if you restart, then it'll pop up with a window. And I just want to show you what this window looks like, because sometimes people can assume that the window that comes up after you've ran msconfig is spyware, and of course it's not. So I'll stop the video and then we'll come back and I'll show you that pop-up window that comes up when you restart the machine, okay? So here we are after our machine is rebooted, and you'll notice that we've been presented with a system configuration utility window, and this window will pop up every time that you start msconfig and you make a change in there and you reboot the machine. So to stop this pop-up from coming up, which, like I said, this isn't spyware or any sort of virus or anything, it's just the msconfig window that came up just telling you that you've made a change. And to stop it from popping up every time you reboot the machine, then you just check this box and do OK. Now if you go back into msconfig and make another change, then after the subsequent reboot, then you're gonna have one of those pop-ups again. But all you have to do, like I said, is just check that box at the bottom and then do OK, and that'll stop it from popping up indefinitely, okay? So as you can currently see, we have a clean machine, and we were able to remove the items from startup as well using our tools that we had in our tools directory. The next virus that we tackle is going to be a little bit more daunting, and you can rest assured that I'll show you how to get rid of it the rest of the way, alright? Have a great day. See you next chapter. In closing on this portion of the DVD, I want to go ahead and draw your attention to one informational resource on Wikipedia.com. It's about tracking cookies. As you're going to notice throughout the course of this DVD, we're going to encounter quite a few in our scans. And if you want to learn more about what they do and how they affect your computer and your overall browsing experience, you can go to http://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/http_cookie.